Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity. I'm here to do my latest weekend review where I am too lazy to make individual videos for all the shows I'm watching because I'm watching too many of them. There's too many of them going on at the moment. So I had to come in and just ramble off quick thoughts on the shows that I'm watching at the moment. So anyhow, I'm going to talk about a lot of shows this time, so it might have to be brief. I'm going to talk about The Mandalorian. I'm going to talk about The Watchmen. I'm going to talk about Rick and Morty. I'm going to talk about his Dark Materials, and I'm going to talk about Vikings. Vikings. Show I've been reviewing for a long time. Anyway, let me start with, and of course, there's probably going to be spoilers throughout, so, just so you know. Anyway, I'm going to start with uh, I'm gonna start with the Mandalorian. So yeah, I don't know. Like the Mandalorian had a really good start to it, but it's kind of been going downhill a little bit. Like the first three episodes were really good, actually, to varying degrees. Like I had my complaints about them here and there, particularly the second episode, but for the most part, I was like, it had a really strong setup, a really interesting character, and they had the baby Yoda, of course, and there was a lot of mystery involved, and they introduced, the Empire dudes, what's their deal, so it would promise of a long-term storyline, and yet we just get a bunch of filler, basically. I mean, they only have 8 episodes. I believe it's just 8. And so that's a short time to tell a story. So I thought, okay, we're going to get from the previews, they showed like Gus Fring and like this whole line of people. So I thought he's going to be an ongoing villain. And it would be an ongoing storyline. They were going to deepen the mystery. What's going on with Baby Yoda? What's it have to do with the Empire dudes? But instead of doing any of that, we just get a bunch of filler. Now, I know, like, last week's episode was bad enough, where it's just like a rehash cliche of every Western, oh, let's protect the village from raiders that we have ever seen. But this week, it wasn't even done well. It's funny because a lot of people focus on Tatooine for some reason, those who liked this episode and those who didn't will seem to like hyper focus on Tatooine. Like some people were like, "Oh, I can't. It sucks that they're in Tatooine. It's horrible. It makes no sense why they are on Tatooine. This is just shameless fan service." And other people were like, "Oh, I love how they go to Tatooine, and yet they don't have too many like ridiculous call outs like they did in like Rogue One or whatever. So it's actually good use of Tatooine." My thought of it, I'm just not fixated on Tatooine. I'm like, "Oh, they went to Tatooine. That's fan service. Moving on. That's No, I'm just not stuck on it. I was like, Tatooine, so what? Who cares? Fan service. Shows like this do it all the time. Whatever. Let's move on. So I don't see it as really good or bad. I'm just thinking of the plot, and the plot is like they had this very cliche. The bounty hunter, that young wannabe bounty hunter, was so cliche. He was so stereotypical. He was so two-dimensional, and it leads they catch this badass assassin, and she just dies immediately. There's some theories that she's not dead, but I don't care. Whatever. It's just, it's just, and they had her played by this actress who's well noted, mostly from Agents of Shield. I know her from Stargate Universe, great show. But anyway, nothing comes of it. It's just like, yeah. And it's and it's something my brother pointed out in his review is that the Mandalorian's pretty, there's no stakes because, Mandalorian versus some hotshot wannabe bounty hunter doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I wonder who's going to win. It's like, I don't know. I mean, there were some stakes with that assassin, but then they just defeated her really easily. So, I don't know. And of course, to my bigger point, this has nothing to do with anything. It's just filler. So, I didn't think this episode sucked. Like a lot of people seem to have thought this episode was horrible. I didn't think it was horrible. But it wasn't particularly good either. And it sort of just, it made me rethink that the show is actually going to be really great. Now I think it's not so much. And I guess a lot of your opinion on The Mandalorian, because I have seen some people liked it, I think it has to do if you prefer episodic or serialized storytelling. And I notice a lot of people who prefer the episodic actually prefer the show and tend to like it, and they like the episodic aspect of it. I am not a fan of episodic storytelling. I think that was done for people who so you can tune in and watch it any time and not have any context. I don't think you can have any character arcs or character growth in episodic storytelling. I think you need serialized storytelling. So I'm a much bigger fan of serialized storytelling. So as a serialized show, this kind of sucks. I gotta be honest. And I don't know. The next few episodes may pull it out when they actually get back to the fucking story with Baby Yoda. Maybe I'll be interested in it again. But so I won't think this season is a total wash. But it is going to make me think that I don't think there's any way I could think the show is great or amazing. Anyway, Colonel Doomsday in the chat says, I haven't seen this week's episode of anything. Well, there you go. I'm going to spoil a bunch of shit for you. Anyway, let me move on to the next show, which is The Watchmen. And speaking of spoilers, who boy howdy, I'm getting in very heavily into spoilers in this bad boy. You probably don't want to watch this unless you've seen it. So let me talk about this latest. And The Watchmen, in contrast, has been amazing. I've been blown away by how good it is. I was not expecting, and it keeps getting better. It just manages to keep getting better and better. And does show that Damon Lindelof has become a really good showrunner since the days of Lost, which amazing show, one of the best shows ever, but a lot of issues in the later seasons. But it seems like Lindelof has learned from his mistakes, first with The Leftovers, and now with this, which just keeps getting better. Now, it was what I love this week's episode because it's Dr. Manhattan, and I could see this. He's kind of one of the hardest characters to write for. Because he doesn't experience linear time. He experiences all things at all times, and he's all knowing and everything. So that, I always talk about the Superman problem, but the Dr. Manhattan problem is actually a lot worse than it's like the Superman problem times 10. And so I really gotta applaud Damon Lindelof for totally. Because I would say right now that Dr. Manhattan is the hardest character to write for in all fiction. And I gotta applaud Lindelof for pulling this off. Alan Moore, of course, he wrote the original comic. He created Dr. Manhattan, so he was good at writing for him. Zack Snyder was just trying to imitate what Alan Moore did and kind of failed. But Lindelof didn't try to imitate. He had his own voice. And what I love about this episode is that the whole thing is, non-linear to put you in Dr. Manhattan's mindset. I love how they keep going back and forth between the first conversation he ever had with Angela and all the other events that will happen in the future and some in the past, and how it's linear in the sense of you see it through Dr. Manhattan's perspective, where he sees all these things happening at the same time. And I thought that was one of the most brilliant ways of having a non-linear storytelling that I've ever seen. Like the non-linear storytelling, if done correctly, I've seen it done horribly, but if done correctly, is one of my favorite forms of storytelling, like from back in the days of Pulp Fiction or what have you. But more recently, I would say, speaking of Lost, that's one of the best things about that show, the way they use nonlinear storytelling to its advantage. So again, this is something in Lindelof's wheelhouse. And this episode is one of the best uses I've ever seen of it. And we got a lot of answers. There's only one episode left in the season, and they still don't know if we're getting a season 2. Apparently, this season was created to be self-contained. And even though, as far as I know, everyone who's watching the show is ranting and raving about how amazing it is. But apparently, well, except for the, hardcore comic book fanboys who are pissed off because they're shitting on their property, whatever. Which, I would probably be the same. Maybe some people could say I'm the same way about Star Trek or other things, but Star Trek 2009 is objectively bad. It's not because I'm a fanboy. It's because it's objectively poorly written. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. This is actually really well written. And so maybe I shouldn't, but I shouldn't like put them down for, because if I understand what it's like to be precious about something, and I could see how people who are fans could be not very happy with how he's kind of rewriting certain things in the show, but I have no attachment to the comic book. I never even heard of it until the Zack Snyder movie came out. To be honest, I didn't like the Zack Snyder movie, so I have zero attachment to the comic book. So I don't mind. I'm finding the show absolutely amazing. In fact, it's kindled my interest in the comic book to the point I might actually read it now. But anyway, no, don't mention Threshold, Colonel Tuesday. God damn it. No, no, it's not like Threshold. Anyway, also, whatever Babylon 5 was, that's my preferred style of storytelling. You know, I like Babylon 5, you know that, Colonel Doomsday, but you know you and I don't see eye to eye on that one, I think. Again, maybe it's because you grew up with it, I didn't. Well, not grew up. I know you were already much older when you start watching it, but still it's something you've watched since the beginning. But, and I saw it like a couple decades after it was released. So I think that does, but I think the show's overrated. I like it. I think it's a good show, but I don't think it's a masterpiece, a lot of other people say. But again, I'm getting off topic. Yeah. It's got a lot of flaws. I mean, you gotta admit it didn't age well. But anyway, sorry, let me get back to the Watchmen. Yeah, so this episode was really blew me away. Now, it answered a lot of questions, but didn't answer everything. Like, we got the things with Veidt and Ozymandias. It answered, like, the origins of Europa and Dr. Manhattan created, and we know that Dr. Manhattan sent him there. So we learned all this stuff, and we got that weird post-credit scene. So if you haven't seen the post-credit scene, go watch the post-credit scene. You missed it. If you did miss it, you missed it. So you should watch it. I was always watch the end of the credits because I want to see the promo for the next week's episode. But I know some people are like, "Oh, I don't like promos; it's spoilers." So those people probably missed the post-credit scene. But anyway, I don't understand that. I really don't. I just got one comment from that when Mr. Robot video a couple weeks ago, and I've just been so flustered about how people actually can, because it airs the time of the episode. It's technically not a spoiler because it's part of the anyway. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. I keep getting really distracted by that. But anyway, what was I saying? Post-credit scene of The Watchmen, which revealed sort of the game warden, gave him that little horseshoe, and he's like, he's freaking out like that's somehow going to be a way for him to escape. He's still Lindelofing. He's still being weird. We got a lot of answers about like how there's babies at the bottom of the pond and they turn into clones and stuff like that. But he's still Lindelofing. He is still being totally fucking weird, even if he does explain himself. Anyway, there's things we still don't know. We don't know what Lady True's connection is to this. In fact, I was a bit disappointed in the lack of Lady True mentions in this episode. I hope they do so in the next episode. In fact, when Dr. Manhattan comes to him, he says that he knew he was on Europa. He said an elephant told me. And I think a lot of people speculating he is referring to Lady True. So if that's true, Lady True, then she somehow has knowledge of what Dr. Manhattan's up to. And there's still a theory that the gold statue she has of Veidt is Veidt himself, which I am still very much on board with. Now, as to the, so there's still some things we don't know. We don't know why they never talked about the game warden, what his deal was. That's still a bit mysterious, and how he said in a trial that the one important rule is thou shalt not leave, and yet Why? We don't know this. We just know that Dr. Manhattan said, Vite said he wanted to go there, so Dr. Manhattan took him there. We didn't know of any established laws and what the deal with the game warden is, because the game warden was supposed to, he's like policing him to make sure he wouldn't leave. We didn't get any of that answered. So that none of that's been touched on. So there's still a lot find out. And of course, as far as the plot goes, now I've heard a lot of people complain about why Dr. Manhattan was able to get snatched up by the Seventh Cavalry, and a lot of people calling that plot holes. But I think it's too early to call it a plot hole, because I think, to me, because saying, "Oh, Dr. White doesn't just kill those people and smush their heads or whatever." But to me, it's obvious that he can, but he chooses not to. So I don't consider it a plot hole until it's revealed that he didn't choose not to. That if they try to play it off that he was powerless to stop them, then yeah, sure, that's a plot hole. But it's too early to call that. I think it's still possible that for some reason he allowed it to happen. That he wanted it to happen. And there's theories out there that Will, Angela's grandfather, has the powers of Dr. Manhattan. I'm starting to warm up to that theory, actually. I'm starting to think maybe that's the case. But if he doesn't, then Angela's going to get them. Because they mentioned in this episode, oh, I have the ability to give my powers to someone else. And that was totally and completely 100% a Chekhov's gun situation. There's no way they would mention that if it's not going to come into play later on. It's definitely going to come into play later on. Anyway, Colonel Doomsday says, if Babylon 5 is serialized storytelling, that's how I prefer it. That's all I meant. Sure. I mean, but there's a lot of examples of serialized storytelling. Babylon 5 is one of the early examples, actually. But yeah. Fair enough. Anyway, let me now move on over to the next show I want to talk about, which is Rick and Morty. So Rick and Morty. I love this week's episode. I gotta admit, I missed the first 5 minutes, and I still feel a bit lost. I feel like I need to go back and watch those first 5 minutes. But it was so fucking weird, but not too weird, and I just watched this video. I realized that a lot of people had issues with season 3. I didn't realize this because everyone I talked to loved season 3, thought it was the best thing ever. I myself thought they were kind of losing me with season 3. Not that I thought it was bad, but something, particularly the one where they had all the consortium or council of Ricks and Mortys, and they had thousands of different Ricks and Mortys all congregated in one place from all these different parallel universes. And then they had a whole episode where they had TV shows, and that was too much. They lost me there. But this is the kind of craziness that I'm completely on board with, where you have a dragon, for some reason he's acting all weird, and they start getting high off of dragon fumes and having spiritual sex or something. That is it's weird, but in the perfect way. I was having a blast with this episode, and even the B plot, the side storyline, was actually just as good. This may be one of my favorite episodes of Rick and Morty, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I'm really impressed with this season. I think this season is back to form season for Rick and Morty, where they are regaining the power that they had in the first 2 seasons. Yeah, and the thing with the talking cat is pretty funny too. Usually I don't like Jerry's storylines, but the talking cat was actually pretty good. I actually felt bad for the talking cat when everyone all of a sudden ostracized him because they found out how he became a talking cat. Apparently, it was it scarred them for life, and they're like, no. And it's funny. I like the continuity in Rick and Morty too, because most comedy, especially silly comedy cartoons, have, like Simpsons, for example, have no sense of continuity, because the whole point is supposed to reset it. But I love how Rick and Morty does it always, and we get a call back to the what do they call it? The Morty mind blowers. That's where Rick would constantly erase Morty's mind. He does it to Jerry in this episode. So, but I still didn't know what the hell this was. Why? Because of course they don't show it to the audience, because it's a gag. But so that made me feel bad for the talking cat. Like everyone's treating it like shit just because they saw this thing of how it became a talking cat, which is apparently scars you for life. This is, yeah, it's really good comedy, done really well. Anyway, um, let me now move over to his Dark Materials. I am starting to really get into the show, but I wouldn't say it's one of the best shows ever. It's grabbed me, but it hasn't wowed me. Let me put it to you that way. I don't see what the big fuss. Of course, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. But to me, this seems like I wouldn't say typical fantasy adventure because I realize most fantasy shows suck. And this doesn't suck. It's actually pretty good. Um, but it's not, well, I want to say it's not Game of Thrones level, but that level has severely dropped. Let me put it to you this way. It's not Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 6 level. Put it to you that way. But it's much better than 7 or 8 levels, so at least it has that. Anyway, but yeah, I was adequately enthralled through this episode about them trying to rescue our what's your face Lyra being trapped in the place and using. I could tell when she was like, "Oh, I love you, mother," that she was playing her. I think that was fucking obvious, and then she was a bit dense for actually buying into it. But I could buy it for her character because she wants to believe, because she wants to be a mother to her daughter again, whatever. And I actually think that was played really well from her. So I think there's a lot of like the special effects, the acting, everything in this was good, and it was exciting enough. I don't know. To me, it's the fact that I'm still confused on who its target audience is. It seems too directed towards children, and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know. That confuses me still a bit. And then how they just jump from being trapped in the ice, and all of a sudden the Egyptians rescue the children. So that seems to be over, and then they just go off on the aeronaut. With the aeronaut, why is Roger going with Lila? My mom watched this with me and she asked me that. She's like, why is Roger going with them? I'm like, I got no fucking idea. Maybe because they're good friends. I don't know. But, so, and then they had this weird little monster. See, this is the problem with like fantasy things. You just throw, oh, here's a weird monster attacking. And I don't know. It just seems a bit formulaic to me. Not saying it's bad. I'm still drawn in. I really want to see what happens. But as I said, I'm not wowed. Like, I'm not gonna tell everyone, "Oh, this is the best show ever. You must watch it." And I'm like, yeah, it's decent. You want to watch a decent show, sure. At this stage, anyway. Now let me move on to Vikings, which I just finished watching, which is why I'm, broadcasting at almost 1 in the morning, because I just watched. Apparently, it started last week, so they had 2 episodes drop last week, which I didn't know about. So I watched those 2 episodes, and the new episode just came out tonight, all in one go. Now, Vikings is a show I used to cover on my channel weekly, way back when, so it brings back memories of people being dickheads to me because they're talking about how I don't understand history when this show is very fictionalized. And I'm sorry, I can't help but watch it now and just laugh at those people, because this show is probably just as historically accurate as Braveheart is. I'm sorry. I mean, I could be wrong, but I remember I did read about the historical myths and things that it was based off of, and they seem to be going way off of. I don't know. Maybe some people will correct me and be like, "Actually, Mark, this and this is still historically accurate." Okay, fair enough. But a lot of it seems to be going. I didn't hear anything about Ivar hanging out with the Russians, but whatever. I don't think she's going to read the book Colonel Doomsday, and I'm not either, because I'm not going to read the book unless the show wows me, and she's definitely not going to read the book. She doesn't have time for it. But anyway, yeah, so what? Vikings. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, I like it. I think had it stuck closer to history, it wouldn't have been as interesting, to be perfectly honest. But here's the thing with the Vikings, is I think the seasons that are airing now, like this new season, last season, probably like object storytelling wise better than the earlier seasons, but the issue is that it's at the same time it's a bit more dynamic, has more characters and more of a focus. It's not as boring. It is kind of repeating the same beats. So, and it does remind me a lot of The Walking Dead in that way. Is the show that just repeats the same beats over and over again. But at the very least, I can say in the Vikings' defense that this will be the last season, and I'm very happy to hear that. Although, technically the last season, but really they always do these double seasons now, so really it's 2 seasons, but they call it one season. Oh, part A and part B, but really it's just one big ass season. I mean, it's actually 2 seasons, but they call it one season, but whatever. So really, there's 2 seasons left, but whatever you want to. At least it's coming to an end. Is all I was gonna say, because Walking Dead is never gonna fucking end. That's why I gave up on it. I was gonna make a video one day about all the shows I've given up on. Walking Dead, the 100. I just because and the 100 is another good example. They just repeat the same shit over and over again. I get sick of it. And Vikings is kind of doing that. Like, I mean, you could say, well, that's history. The same things happen, but it's different to see it play out in a narrative-based, heavily fictionalized TV show, even though it is based off of real life history. It gets repetitive. But as I said, because the actual storytelling is actually better than it was, is what keeps me watching. But it's hard for me to say that season 6 or season 5 is better than season 1 or 2, because in a lot of ways it is. But then again, what season 1 and 2 did were original, where this is kind of just repeating what those seasons already did. If you know what I'm saying. So the first bit of episodes, we got me to the Rust Vikings. I'm just going to call them Russians, even though historians would probably go, they're not actually. I don't give a fuck. They went to the cities like Kiev, which is in Ukraine, but whatever. Anyway, he meets up with them. Ivar meets up with them, and this guy's like really crazy and nuts. And I think it's kind of typical for a Vikings character. You have a lot of characters in the show, or you not just the Vikings. You have like English and French Frankia characters who are like all like that as well. So it's just very typical of the show to have someone who's like just going around killing people, because that's probably historically accurate. There's a lot of documents for that, but the show just likes to indulge in that. And the whole thing with him killing his brother for no goddamn reason and laughing about it, and his other brother tries to kill him and he tricks him and then ends up like latching a chain to his I don't know. it's hard to get on board with it. I'm like, this is a crazy guy, but it's something we've kind of seen before dozens of times. And I don't really get the storyline with King Harold what's the Fine Fair, Fine Hair, whatever the fuck his name is. I don't get that storyline. Why is that weird, creepy bald dude capturing him now? Because they were on the same side before, and all of a sudden he captures him. He's being all like, I never liked this character, the way he talks in poetry and being all weird and like that scene. How do you know that Bjorn was coming and to trap them? And I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll explain that next week, I don't know. I'm just not really on board with this storyline so far. And kind of get the feeling that if Bjorn does rescue Fine Hair, or whatever his name is, that he's just going to betray Bjorn, because the whole show has been like, oh, you betrayed that one to get this one, and he betrayed them and get that, and that's what happened in later seasons too. So that's another downside to the later seasons. Oh, you betrayed him, and he betrays you, and they betrayed them, blah, blah. And maybe people say, oh, that's accurate to history, but what is accurate to history is not always great narrative storytelling, to be honest. But then again, I'm contradicting myself, because I was knocking the show for not being historically accurate, but whatever. Anyway, it's still interesting, but I'm not as enthralled with the show as I used to be. But I'm curious to see what they're gonna do, and because it's the final season, I'm definitely watching it. If there's a Walking Dead situation where like this show's gonna go on forever, and then I might actually give up on it. And I'd be all right. I'm out. And it seems like the 100 is the same way. That just then they seems like that show's going to go on forever as well. I'm like, no, you're just doing the same thing over again. I'm out. But the fact that Vikings is like, no, this is our last season, then I'm in. I want to see how they end this, and it is interesting enough. I will say that. The Rurik dynasty. I think the Russian Vikings were called. Okay, there you go. The Rust Vikings is what they call them in the show. And I looked up Rust Vikings and said Rust people. Harold Fine Hair or Fine Hair? Fair Hair. Oh, is it Fine Hair or Fair Hair? Okay, gotcha. Anyway, my trusted fact checker in the chat there, Carmel Doomsday. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. So they were decent, like any episodes of Vikings were. They weren't boring, as a lot of episodes of Vikings were. So that's oh, the whole thing with Bjorn having an affair. I'm like, dude, again, we saw this like a billion times. Like when that woman was like flirting with him, it's like he's gonna fuck her. We know he's gonna fuck her. Stop trying to play it off like it's some mystery. Ooh, is he gonna do it? Of course he is. He always does. This is the same shit we've seen over and over again. It's like it's not interesting anymore. But anyway, so that's all I gotta say. Yeah, 30 minutes. That's my good mark. I might next week, because the Watchmen finale, depending on how much it wows me, I might actually end up doing a separate podcast for that and to do my week review for everything else. We'll see. Anyway, that's all I got to say about all these shows. So I will be back next week to talk about what I'm watching. And before that, I'm going to Expanse drops this Friday. I'm going to watch the whole thing at once. I'm going to record all of my reviews for it in the same day because I'm going to watch a whole season at once. But I'm going to release each review week by week. So I'll be releasing. I'll record it this Friday, but I won't be releasing later episodes till like a month from now. But I will drop my review for episode 1 the moment, well, not the moment because I still got to watch it and review it. But yeah, the day it's released, and goddamn, I can't wait for The Expanse. It sounds awesome. Anyway, thanks you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.